Coming to you straight from the Rio Grande and beyond, broadcasting to the four corners of the globe. So grab your seat, your coffee, or your sundowner.
Okay, everybody, here we go.
On point, as always. This is Gloves Off. Gloves Off.
Have you ever wondered about what happens in a martial arts studio? Well, you start right away by setting goals, building determination, gaining focus, building skills, all while becoming more fit, gaining confidence, and learning self-defense. Withdrawn Academy is a school where attitude meets aptitude. So give us a call at 956-401-4868. Back at you in Gloves Off. I'm Paul Withdrawn. I'm here with a great guest and a pillar in our community. He's Webb County Attorney Mark Montemayor. How are we doing? Good. How are you? Good. How's everything going on? Because 2023 is a little bit different. A lot of things going on.
That's going well. Just getting the year started and just trying to get back into the mode of, after the holiday season kind of slows things down, but we're back to it and back to the grind.
Absolutely. We've seen a lot of things change from, I think everybody being since 2020 to the present.
Yeah.
What has changed in the sense of crime-wise and things that we have to look at in this day and age?
It's true. Things changed a lot. The pandemic really opened our eyes, in different aspects of everyday life for everybody. But with us, with my office, from the way cases were heard, the way cases were prosecuted, everything we had to adapt, Zoom, no more in-person court, things of that nature. So it made it a little bit more difficult. It's something different that, as attorneys, we're really used to, but we adapted and everything worked out. It's just based on the circumstances. Since then, at that time, I think crime went down a bit. I can't really say why or what caused it. I don't know, maybe just because everybody's more at home or what the situation may have been. But as far as the cases we received, they were a little less as compared to other years, that pandemic year. But it's gotten back to normal ever since then. And 2022 was kind of, I think, the first part we're still kind of dealing with the pandemic and still kind of living through that. But the second half of 2022, everything kind of started getting back to normal. Back to the way everything was, and that's where we're at now. Everything's kind of back to normal. It still exists. COVID's still out there, and we still have to be mindful and careful. But I think everyday life is back.
Sure. What do we see here? What are the crimes that we should be aware of, or that are running amok here in Webb County?
Okay. Great question. There's all different kinds of crimes.
Sure.
As we know, kids are getting into all sorts of problems. Your basic fights, assaults, threats, terroristic threats. Those basic things going on. But we also have other situations, you have your serious crimes as well that they're getting involved in. And those are things that have always existed. But lately, and especially when I took office, we wanted to really focus on and really pay attention to youth that was being involved or getting involved in human smuggling, because those cases had not been, juveniles getting arrested for human smuggling were not being prosecuted. And so I wanted to change that. So that's something we looked at, and that's something that we're dealing with, that, it's more than people realize.
Sure.
That it's going on. And these individuals are not just, the ones that are guiding them through the brush, when they cross over. They're not the ones, they're in leadership roles. They're the ones in charge of the stash houses. They're the ones in charge of the transferring and moving of individuals. They're higher up, and these are kids. And so that's what we're seeing. You have the kids that are driving and that are driving them from point A to point B. A big problem I see is they're moving them within our city, and then law enforcement, tries to intercept them, and they trying to flee, putting the public at risk, and we see that a little too often, and that's a big problem for me. So we have them engaging in more serious crimes. We have a problem with vaping. That's and one. It could be several reasons why we're seeing problems with vaping, and so that's another issue we're dealing with. And so truancy, kids with truancy, and I think it just comes down to respect. There's a lack of respect for authority, lack of of responsibleness for their behavior.
Absolutely. We see kids here from all walks of social life, right? So you see them from all the demographics of that are here, from all the different types of workforce. And we see some with parents, both parents at households, some with single parents, some they're living with an aunt or an uncle. So we see everybody. But you're right. There's a lack, I guess, in the last, what I've noticed here, the last 15, 18 years, más o menos, you're seeing a lack of kind of respect that's going on. It's kind of like you all owe us instead of, what do you mean I have to say yes sir, ma'am, you don't see that anymore.
Right.
And when they don't, those words are no longer in their vocabulary. Every so often, I'm not saying the vast majority, because there's some kids that are, right? But talking about in the masses. So there's something that we're losing somewhere along the line of parenting, whether it's at school or as well. There's something there that we've lost to touch our children, or to get to our children, to have that type of self-respect. And that's something that is pretty hard to see, because you see that, and once they start, you all owe us attitude, then a lot of things can occur. There's the leadership roles change. We're humans. We belong to a society kind of group, right? So when we're pushed away from one kind of social group, we're going to go to the group that's going to help us out. And sometimes it's the wrong path. Right. Gangs. One time here in Laredo, we didn't have the problems with gangs, but here now you see them, so they kind of, pick up. And that's something that we'll talk about right now. And that'll be gang-wise activity. Do you see a gangs like in other cities, or do you still see that barrio mentality?
With the kids,
yeah,
I think you see a little bit of the gangs, but I think the problem that we have is that we have these bigger gangs, these adult male gangs, that I can go off and start naming,
sure.
And you can one I could be referring to, but our local gangs, what they do is they use our youth.
Yeah.
And so it's not necessarily that our youth are in gangs, and then they do exist. There are gangs, don't get me wrong. But I don't think I think it's to where these adult gangs are utilizing our youth,
sure.
and our kids, because of whatever the reason may be. One, that way they don't get into trouble and they don't have to go to jail. A lot of times the mentality has been that kids get a slap on the wrist, and they're not going to do anything to them. They're going to say nada. Probably a combination of all those things on why. But that's something that we're trying to change. We're trying to educate our kids as to making the right choices, right decisions in life. Focus on positive things instead of going down the negative path.
Right.
So it does exist, yes, but we haven't seen it within our youth to be an extreme problem. But it does exist and it is out there. But they're more utilized by our adult gangs to do their dirty work a lot of times.
See, and you can see that because you get a kid that's 15, 16 years old and doing something. When he's 18, it's going to be a clean slate.
Right.
Does the time run concurrent afterward, depending on the crime, or
the youth? If they have some sort of record as a juvenile, a lot of times that's not necessarily sealed, but in a certain way it could be considered sealed. I can't think of the word right now; it's not coming to me. But so it's kind of juvenile records are not.
Yeah, they won't affect you as an adult.
Right.
So for that's why they're hitting the younger ones. And so we're looking at maybe 14, 15, 16-year-olds, 17-year-olds.
Yeah, prime age, 14 to 16-year-olds, prime age, even younger. 13, 14. We have some 12-year-olds. It's getting younger and younger. What we're seeing, and we just try to make an impact. We just try to go out there to the schools, to wherever we can, the events where we can reach as many kids as we can, even parents, letting them know, hey, this is what's going on with your kids. This is what's out there. Be aware of these things. Be on the lookout for these things, and that way at least they have some information, some knowledge. And it's you would be surprised at the amount of individuals out there, parents that, especially with the vaping, they're told one thing, they don't really know what it is, yeah. And so they're told, oh, it's like this cigarette, it's a little cigarette. And because you do have the e-cigarettes, like that.
Right.
And so, some parents may not know better and will believe that. And so, it's been times when I've had to kind of burst people's bubbles, let them know, I'm sorry, but no, it's actually...
And Counselor, in vaping, this is not real marijuana, right? This is a synthetic marijuana base, or how is it?
Well, it's both. It's both. I mean, you
explain to us.
Okay, so a couple of years back, the legislature created a law, or I don't know what word, but they created a law where CBD, which is the cannabis, where the level of THC, which is the ingredient, the psychoactive ingredient in marijuana that is what really affects individuals. And so the legislature said, look, you can have cannabis, but as long as the marijuana level, the THC level, is below 0.03%, it's legal. It's fine, as long as it's below that, which is, now you have all your CBD products for health problems and whatnot. So you have that, and those are legal as long as they're below 0.03%. The problem becomes, having to show that it's above that level, which is still illegal, because that's still considered marijuana. And so that is where it's illegal. And so we've had to kind of adapt and adjust to that new change, because before it didn't matter the level of THC that was in it. As long as it had THC, it's marijuana. And so it's an arrestable offense. So we're having to figure out, is it an e-cigarette? Is it just CBD, or is it really marijuana? And then we have to act accordingly. And so it's made it a little more challenging for it.
And in the field and out there, when you see it, when you find out, really, what is it?
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying?
We don't have it readily available to where we can figure it out right then and there. That's a big problem for us. So but at the end of the day, it's still illegal, and even on school grounds, it's still illegal. And so it doesn't matter, it doesn't change it. It's still illegal for them.
It's still illegal if it has that, if it surpasses that, right? It's just up to that one level. But vaping, it's illegal in the school grounds by itself.
Yes.
And that's where you're getting it.
Yes.
Are kids actually vaping on the school grounds, inside the gyms and stuff, or
as far as I know, that's what we've been seeing in school, on school grounds, and sharing it with other students, and that's when we know, and that's when it's just based on the conduct, their attitude. You know that it's not CBD.
There's something else.
But still, legally speaking, we're required to show the evidence and prove that it is.
It's going to be kind of hard out in the field to actually prove what it is, unless you come up with something like the breath analyzers that they come out with.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
That, hey, you know what, breathe to this, but then you go into open another box.
A whole kind of worm, yeah. But at the end of the day, I mean, to arrest somebody, you just need the probable cause that a crime has been committed. And so if you have a cause to believe, hey, that's marijuana, then I can, to suspect that that's what it is, based on all the circumstances, then you can arrest. And so that's what we're doing, because it looks like marijuana, it smells like it, and so we're still prosecuting those cases, although we are looking at other forms of punishment, as trying to work with these kids, trying to get them off of that track and trying to redirect them, instead of just taking them to court and punishing them, and that's not necessarily what I'm trying to do here.
And is vaping, because number one, I'm a smoker or what have you, but is vaping as addictive as nicotine?
Definitely, and I would say maybe even more so.
Does it have nicotine in it?
That's a good question.
Or the chemicals that what makes it as how can I say the addiction's still there.
I just think the psychoactive drug, the THC, and that's what really I think is more addicting than anything else. But who knows? I mean, nicotine, even in the e-cigarettes, nicotine is addictive as well. So, but honestly, I don't think nicotine is found in these. But I would need to
because
make
we
sure
didn't
research
find, that's an interesting fact. I want to thank you for that. What else is a lot of folks always talk about the single parent homes.
Right.
Is that what we're seeing here? Or is it all over the place?
I think it's you can't really nail it down to that situation. Obviously, that's something that we do see that does occur, and I can't say no, that doesn't exist. It does, but at the end of the day, I don't think that's something that determines whether somebody's successful in life or not, or whether they get into trouble or not. I think it comes to just good parenting and giving good guidance. And everything,
Absolutely.
Just the whole society and community as a whole, is how they interact and how they're treated and how they're taught, even with the schools. And so I think it's a combination of everything.
Absolutely.
That either contributes to them going one way or the other way.
Yeah. You're absolutely correct. If we had to pinpoint something, just say, you know what? This is something that hasn't been tried before. What would you do to change what's going on?
There's there's different ways you can attack this. I mean, we could attack this from, we're just going to prosecute everybody. But I don't think that's the answer. Don't get me wrong, we will do what we have to do.
Sure.
That's our job, that's my job. But I care more about, them succeeding in life.
Sure.
We all make mistakes.
Absolutely.
And so, these are
that
kids.
second chance that we need to get.
Exactly, and I understand. And so we understand that. My staff understands that. At the end of the day, there's still consequences for our choices, and these kids, have to pay the consequences. But at the same time, we want to help them, and we want to try to guide them, like I said, down the right path, and say, look, you made a bad choice, and there was consequences, but hey, doesn't matter. You can still do it right. You can still go down the right path, and that's what I would love to do. And how to attack that, man? What I try to do is just different ways of attacking, from educating our kids, going to all the schools, going to all the events where there's kids, where I can speak to them, we can address them, where there's events with parents, talking to parents and trying to educate the parents and letting them know, hey, this is what's going on with the kids, this is what we're seeing in the schools, this is what we're seeing out in the community, be aware and be able to look out with your kids. And just working closely with the school districts, working with our other law enforcement agencies, just kind of being informed, trying to be proactive. More than anything, that's, I think, the approach that we've tried to take, in being proactive instead of reactive, and just trying to provide the tools necessary, and hopefully, we've provided that information for that parent or for that teacher or that child that they can take with them and now turn it into being successful. And that's the way we try to attack it. But I've always been the type of individual that, hey, I don't have all the answers. I ask my staff, hey, anybody have any other ideas? What do y'all think? Or anybody. I'm always open to ideas and different things and ways that we can impact the community and make change.
Absolutely. And it also depends on the environment where you come up with, the neighborhoods that you're in. There's where we're going there, and it changes. In Laredo, it changes. Just the neighborhoods, and you can imagine in other cities. But I do believe that discipline is something that, not discipline as in you got this wrong, you're going to get spanked or whatever. A set of disciplines, it's 5 o'clock, you have to be here at this time. Those sets of disciplines, once you start getting those ingrained inside you, you can do a lot better in the future. And I see that, kind of like in the military. See some of the folks change inside the military, and also they start doing better. Why? Because they lack that discipline that was inside. And I think, do we have to push that a little bit more to instill that in our youth? Probably so, because sometimes in school we have discipline, but you get to the house, it's not there.
Right.
Or vice versa.
Right, true.
And there's sometimes I think that's what we see here. You can have a kid that has phenomenal ability. Class starts at 5 o'clock and it's from 5 to 6:30, and they drop them off at 6.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? The kid still has phenomenal ability, but little by little he's going to start caring less and less.
Right, sure. Very true, and then I think that's a big thing.
You know, the discipline within the thing.
And I think we see it with some of the actions of these kids. And I think that's something that is lacking. Is discipline and the attitude that they have, that they're bringing to school or wherever they're going. It's changed compared to when I was younger.
Sure.
Just when we were talking about it earlier, it's just things have changed, and I think as parents we need to hold our kids more accountable. They need to have more responsibility. And I don't know if this is something, but I have seen it. I'm not saying this is the reason or this is what's going on or all the parents are doing it. No, I'm just saying that I don't know if it's that parents are trying to be more friends than a parent.
I've kind of seen that.
I've seen it. Like I said, I'm not saying that's the reason.
We can't equal ourselves. They're still our kids. We're still the parent. We're always going to be their friends or confidants or whatever. Right. We're always going to be there, but we're not the same level.
Right, exactly. And so I think maybe that's something that we need to kind of look at and maybe look at ourselves and see if, hey, is that something I'm doing? We need to remember we're the parent.
Absolutely.
And
absolutely.
If you need to discipline or if you need to do what needs to be done in order to make sure our child stays on that right track.
Absolutely. I see when you start seeing that type of attitude going, you start seeing a little bit more of a lax and a lot more problems will arise in the future. When you start seeing that type of attitude inside.
True, definitely. I think, and what I have seen is in conversations I've had with other individuals, and it seems like coping skills. Yep. Kids nowadays, they have difficulty coping with when problems arise, especially major problems arise, and that's when you can have them lash out or act a certain way or do something that they normally wouldn't do. And so coping skills, I think, as far as how to handle problems when things come up, because I talk to my kids about it all the time. It's like, hey, life is like that.
Yeah.
Life is you're always, and when I go do career days or go speak to kids, I let them know, hey, life is you're always gonna have things that are gonna try to knock you off your path, that are just gonna, it's tough to deal with, but you have to just overcome it and keep moving forward. That's the way life is. And I see that maybe sometimes our kids lack the necessary skills to cope with problems and be able to address them and deal with them and still move forward in a positive way, in a positive direction. And so that's something that we talk to the kids about and try to address with them, and so they're aware. And hey, it's okay if we have problems. It's okay when things are going bad for you, but it's okay, and you just got to keep moving forward. Life continues.
Absolutely. And things like that, I think it's something that we have to place more effort on. That, like you said, coping.
Yeah.
What happens, how it happens. How can I say, the positives of it and the negatives of it, and how we can deal with it. And that's something that we have to start teaching them since day one, as parents.
Yeah.
As parents. And because they're going to end up coping it one way or the other.
Right, exactly.
And so we better understand how we're teaching them.
Trying to do it in a positive manner.
Absolutely, absolutely. What besides vaping and the human trafficking that's going on here? You said there's a lot of fights. Is that very common here, or it's always been the same?
It's the same. Yeah, it's the same. You still have the same. It's nothing different. As you'll have your little misunderstandings and you'll have your fights. And so we understand that. But we still.
And how are schools taking it back then? Because I remember when we were kids, we just got paddled and we got in-house detention. How are they doing now? Are they pressing charges now?
The schools, for the most part, I don't want to speak for the schools. My understanding, they have like a zero tolerance policy, so they kind of send them to step. I do know that they do have some exceptions here and there. But at the end of the day, my office, we don't get involved with it. That's the school district. That's their business. We don't get involved with it. But
we get involved in the outside.
Right, exactly. In the system, in the justice system, we're over here. But, kind of we understand, they kind of go together. But again, that's the school district's, business. We don't really get involved in it. But they do tend to have a zero tolerance policy, and they'll send them to step, which, it's difficult because sometimes, somebody could just be defending themselves. You know, and here now I got to go to step, and you know they lose a lot of their scholarships. They lose, you know.
That's where, excuse me for interrupting, that's where I see it wrong. Because there's a difference between self-defense and a fight, and there's a difference between mutual and so on and so forth. There's a lot of wrongs in it, and coming from this type of, self-defense is something now that's kind of changing, and you know, you're in your right, and all of a sudden now you're going to be the wrong, right. You know, and I don't think the schools are dealing with it as they should. I think they're just throwing everything all together in a box and pushing it off down the road. And you see that even with bullying. Let's take a step down and change it kind of different. You get a kid that's been bullied first grade, second grade, third grade. Now he's going to fifth grade. Now the bully might end up being a little bit shorter than the other one. Maybe the fifth, you know, there's
things have changed.
Things have changed. All of a sudden, they start bullying, turns around and goes, pop.
Right.
Enough's enough. But there's a pattern that was going on there.
Right.
But guess who's going to get in trouble? Because you turned around and you defended yourself. Enough's enough, you know. And that's where I see it wrong, because now you're telling people that they can't defend themselves. Right. And that's where I think we as a community need to change that and push it forward. And it's going to take you and also our district attorney to say, you know what, enough's enough. This happened because of this, and you know what.
Right, exactly. You know, but when we get involved, we get all the information from the respective agencies that.
Sure.
So if it's a school, we'll get it from the school district police department, and hopefully there's been reports made. There's a trail of that bullying going on. If there isn't, that's where we have problems now. You know, because now it's a he said, she said. Hey, well, you've been bullying me. Okay, well, we need information. Where can we have proof of this that we can? Because we do look at that. We have had that come up, of course. And my staff, they know. Hey, well, let's investigate that. If that's what's happening, then we'll take a closer look at it and do what we need to do. But that's, we base it on what we receive, and we've seen situations where, look, I understand the school districts are overwhelmed, teachers have so much to do. I get it, I understand, but that's where it starts, is in the classroom or at the schools, and so I don't know what needs to be done. I mean, again, that's the school district's.
You said it. Excuse me for interrupting. Paper trail. And that needs to be done. It has to be reported from the get-go. And if it was reported from the parent, it has to go in there. We get, every week we might get at least 6 or 7 calls, my son being bullied, my daughter being bullied. What do I do? Blah, blah, blah. And it's more like, you know what? Why don't you send an email, talk to the teacher. Don't just call her up and yell at her. Right? Back it up and send a copy to the principal.
Right.
And start the paperwork. Because if it happens again, now you go from the principal to the trustee, and you take it from there.
Right.
And then you go in front of the board. It's going to continue. Bullying is like everything else. It's that tolerance. What happens? I'm calling your name, I'm calling you whatever. Then it can become physical. And it's going to go up it is going to escalate. Eventually, it's going to.
And that's what I wanted to say. I mean, look, we all grow up. We all know how it is. We all tease each other. That's it's one thing to tease. And I think that's part of growing up, is teasing and kind of getting that thick skin, because in life we all know, hey, you have to have
you better have it, and you better have it.
So I understand, bullying does go on, and that doesn't necessarily make it a crime just because that's going on. That happens within, groups of friends. That happens. But it's when you cross that line, when it becomes more than just that, then now that's where it's a problem. And so that's one thing that we need to kind of remember, that there's that line, and, if that line is crossed, then yes, that's what needs to be done. How? I mean, we're still working on that. We're still working with all those things.
So now it goes into cyberbullying, and it goes into a bunch of other things. Now it's just opened up, and it goes
hour on that.
You know what I'm saying? And you're like, now it becomes a whole different element of things, and where do we stop it?
But it leads. What does it lead to? You asked me, what else are we seeing? Well, one thing that we've been kind of very mindful of and trying to be proactive is these school threats. We don't see it too often here. We do get the school threats, especially after Webb happened.
Yeah, I can imagine.
There was a string of phone calls that we were getting within that week of threats going on at the local schools. So that's something that we've been dealing with and working closely with the schools on. Obviously, that's something we want to avoid. and so we have a zero tolerance policy. My office has a zero tolerance policy for any type of school threats. I think all you can agree with me on. I think we live in an age now where everybody, adults and kids, know that school threats are not a joke anymore.
Absolutely.
I think it's clear now.
It's and it never was. It never was. But we have. How can I say it? I've talked to some of the chiefs, and I've talked to the sheriff and others, and we've kind of gone over scenarios. I hate to say it, but we have all the ingredients for something like that to occur in an ugly way, and we better know how to stop it. We better be on top of it, and I commend you all for being on top of that, because it starts from there, and we better be vigilant. And I tell this to parents. I go, if you're listen to your kids, man, because your kids are the ones that are telling you, hey, little Billy's acting weird, don't leave him alone.
Yeah.
Pay attention to what he's saying. If little Billy's acting weird or whatnot, and there's the other kids saying the same thing, pay attention, talk to the teacher. And it's not about going into witch hunts.
Right.
It's not no Salem witch hunts here. It's about something's wrong. Let's find out what it is.
Exactly.
And it might happen. I mean, and when you look at them, just so many wrongs. But we have those ingredients, and we better be vigilant about it. And parents, you all are the ones. And I look at this, counselor. You see social media. You see Facebook. It says adult entertainment site only. You have kids that are 12 years old, 13 years old on Facebook. TikTok, the same thing. Instagram, the same thing. We have to say no, and that's no.
That's the parents' role.
Understand what I'm saying? And they're just laxed about it. I mean, it just, so much stuff can go on through there that who knows who they're talking to, especially in these video games. Who knows who you're talking to across the U.S. or across international guidelines? I mean, parents don't know.
No.
And the kids are on there for hours.
I mean, they can, I'm talking to some teenager, and it could be some adult somewhere. Which is very common.
It's very common, and we better be vigilant about what we're doing and how we're acting with our kids, and how we see them, and how they're, pay attention to them. Pay attention.
I agree, and that's
pay attention to them.
It's something scary, but again, we've got a zero tolerance policy for them. I think that by
I
now
commend you for that.
everybody knows, and so the law allows us from 10 to 16 years old to arrest a 10 to 16-year-old. A 10-year-old, for me, I don't see that happening. My staff knows if they come to us and ask us to approve the arresting of a 10-year-old, you come talk to me for nobody approves that except me, because to me a 10-year-old, that's 4th, 5th grade. I mean, that to me, it's hard for a child at that age to really have that necessary mind, that intent in their mind to do whatever it is they're doing. So I don't do that. I think we had, when that happened in London, we had all that string of calls. We had an 11-year-old that got picked up that I approved, because, again, zero tolerance policy. It's just, these kids know nowadays, and you cannot joke about that.
And were they trying just to copycat it, or were they going through issues, or what issues?
Yeah, no, there's issues going on, and I didn't think it was a copycat. No, I haven't seen any of that going on with the calls that we've received. It's just more these kids have their own issues going on, and again, I don't know why they're lashing out, if they think that that's a way to kind of lash out and to kind of get help.
Are they crying for help?
Maybe, I've thought of that. Yeah, is that a cry for help? And which is okay. I understand. We have to deal with the crime that was committed and pay the consequences. But at the same time, let's figure out what's going on with this kid, so that way, they get the help they need. Those are the things that we try to do in order to address the situation and avoid it from happening in the future. It's. I wish I don't have all the answers, but we're trying everything we can to be proactive and get that message out.
And here's what we'll kind of conclude the whole segment here is, what happens if we get a parent and he says, I'm having trouble with my child. Can they call you, and can they get direction of which way to go, or how can I'm seeing they're actually calling out for help. How can we address that matter before something happens?
Definitely. Look, we do receive calls where parents are kind of asking for that guidance and help. And I see two sides to that. The good and the bad. Okay, and I'm going to be both.
Sure.
Good meaning, hey, at least I know that they care about their child and they want to, figure out what's going on. But at the end of the day, parents need to understand we are not here to take their place.
Sure.
And so a parent, regardless of what's going on, we never give up on our kids ever. But at the end of the day, you got to figure out how to handle your kid. Not that it bothers me, but to have somebody come and say, I can't handle my son anymore. Is it my responsibility to kind of step in your shoes now and be the parent for your child? That's not my job. We're here to help. Yeah, well, what's going on? What's happening? What's going on with your child? What are they going through? And okay, well, maybe try this, try that. Well, definitely, we're here for that. But not to step in their shoes and now
we're the parent, with the state's going to take care of it.
Right.
It's not that,
And so that's why I said, there's a good and the bad. And as long as the parent isn't like, hey, pues,
that's your problem.
Right. No, that's not, I'm not, I don't like that. Hey, we're parents, we got to deal with the good and the bad. And we're here to help, we're here to support, we're here to guide, but at the end of the day, you are the parent. And it's ultimately your responsibility to help that child.
Absolutely. But, you never know. Maybe
definitely. So,
what have or actually going into a gang-related thing. And
we talk to them exactly and say, okay, what's going on? What is it that he's doing or her? What is she doing? What is she getting involved in? What is he getting involved in? Okay, well, you might want to look at this. You might want to. So definitely, of course, we help anything in any way that we can. My staff knows that, and I'm very happy about that. I'm very proud of them for being that way, because that's the way I've always wanted them to. That's what I asked them to do. Hey, doesn't matter. And even if it's not something that our office does, well, you know what? Hey, well, Mr. Retron, you should go and talk to so-and-so agency, so-and-so. They're the ones that handle that stuff. So we guide them. Even if it's something that we don't do, we're going to help you to point you in the right direction.
Absolutely. Well, number one, thank you for letting us, coming out here, and letting us know what the problems are. And once more, parents, stay vigilant on your kids. Teachers, the same thing. Start paying attention. And start paying attention to, listen to them. Because they're telling you what's going on. And sometimes, I understand, we're working, we kind of push things aside, but pay attention to them. Sit down and have those conversations to them. Get involved with what they're doing, especially on the internet, and especially in some of these games that are out there. Because some of those games follow you even in your cell phone, and it's kind of interesting to see how everything has changed. But there's a lot of people out there that are not in it for the good. So once more, thank you.
No, thank you.
And folks, you all be safe, stay safe, and God bless you.